parameterized, and as well as how we can pass conditions using filters in a report definition, and how we can filter out the data, and how we can access the report browser for a given portal and see what exactly does that particular report contain, right? We saw how parameterization helps us to minimize the required results, and dynamically we were able to pass parameters and see the desired report without hard coding. We also removed the hard coding from our report and saw how exactly that helps us. That was a good exercise. Perfect. So today we are going into a much smarter or a much deeper concept in Pega called as data pages. In previous versions, this particular thing was called as, the data pages were called as uh, versions data pages were called as declare pages in previous versions before 7. Right now the version which we are using is Pega 8.x. It started from 4.x, 4.x, 5.x, 6.x, and Pega 7, and from Pega 7 onwards we started calling declare pages as data pages. So what are data pages? It's kind of really interesting concept, to understand that, I would say I will give you a really nice example. This is how I understood it. So I would like to give the same example to you guys. So let us say, if you remember, for people who come from middle class background, sometimes the water never came in our home and we had to go to the close by bore well, and then we had to hit the bore and bring the water and fill our drums or whatever we had in our homes. Did we do that? How many of you have done that? Right, we do that, right? Whenever we didn't have water in our homes, what we did was we went to the nearby borewells, got that water, and we filled the water in our home. Of course, I mean, many of you who could relate to it can relate to it. But for example, let us say, every time you needed water, if you had to go to borewell and fetch it, is it not an expensive operation? Every time you need water, you will have to go to a borewell, fetch it, and bring it back. Do you think it is expensive operation? People identified that, before the huge overhead drums were created, right? They were going, every time they used to go to this borewell or a well which they have in the backyards, go there, fetch the water, bring it to drink, and they used to use. In the older homes still today, you will see there are wells in the back which they go. There will be a pot tied to a string. They'll put that through a pulley, they'll pull the water, and they will fetch it. But it is a very expensive operation. Imagine every time you have to use water, you will have to go there, fetch it, and bring it back. It becomes expensive operation, or tedious operation for us. Similar thing is true with data also. How did we solve that problem? Every time we had to go there and fetch and bring water. So some engineer saw that and he told, hey, well, this is like, doesn't make sense. Why don't we build bigger drums, store the water there? Whenever we want, we'll access from here. Whenever it completely gets empty, then we will call someone or we'll do something. And they found out motors through which they loaded the water. Yes or no? Is that not how we solved that water problem of fetching every time? Do we agree? Right, perfect. So we understand that, okay, there is expense in operation when we don't have automation like that. So we solved the water problem by creating tanks. If you see every home today, on top of them they have these yellow tanks which have already water is loaded there. Whenever it is empty, you just turn on a switch, the water gets loaded. Same thing is true with data also. Every time you need to get something, you will have to hit the database. Every time uh, data is needed in application, the application code has to travel to database or hit the database. Yes or no? Like every time you need something, if you have saved it in the database, the application code has to go there, hit and fetch that data. Do you agree? Because you have stored that in those tables. Yes or no? Right? But what if in the same way, when you see that the application is using certain data again and again, it makes sense to store that data within the application, in the sense in a temporary memory or somewhere where you can use it uh, easily without going and hitting a database. Hitting a database is an expensive operation in any application development. Understand this. You'll be always asked to limit the number of hits you do to a database. Why? Because it's an expensive operation. It's like going to a bore, hitting hitting the bore, fetching water and bringing the water. It's like that. Do you guys understand when I say going to database and hitting and fetching the data? Are you able to understand? Every time an application needs data, see, today's class might span out and we might go into another class also, which is fine. It's perfectly fine. This concept has to be understood really well. People fail to understand that, you know. So we'll be spending little more time. So bear with me. Don't worry if we are taking too much time, but the idea here is to clarify the concept in such a way that anytime we have to use this particular data pages, we need to know why we are using that. Okay. That is our takeaway from the class. Perfect. So with those ground rules set, so we understand that, you know, every time we hit a database, the data to be fetched, the operation is very expensive on application. Why? Because every time you have to fetch a data, you need to establish a connection with database. In the sense, for example, let us say you have to fetch, you're not getting water, you have to get the water from nearby home. So every time, for example, every time you go and get one can of water, after that they are closing the door, let us assume. Every time you go, you have to knock the door. Yes or no? You have to knock the door. Someone has to come and open the door. He has to validate. Oh, is it you? Oh, they recognize you, and then you'll be going inside and fetching the water from their place, bringing back again, reaching your place, opening the door, coming back, filling, and this is a process till you get whatever amount of water you want. But it is expensive operation. Do you agree? Same thing is true with data also. Every time you want to fetch the data, you have to establish a connection with database. Why? Because the data is inside the database, right? You have to establish a connection. From there, you have to hit the query, select certain records from this particular table, fetch it, come back. Now, in our application, if you remember, where's this guy? Okay, admin alpha rules. We created report definition. If you see what is report definition doing, every time we are running it, it is going to the database, fetching those records and bringing it back to us. Yes or no? Yes or no, guys? Right? Same thing is happening with obj browse also. Obj browse also, what is it doing? Every time we are executing that activity, going to the database, fetching that activity, you through that activity, going to database, fetching that data, bringing it back and displaying to the user. Now this is not okay. This is like going and fetching water every time I need to go from the well, which is not fine, which is not a good design for our application. We need to, so Pega identified this problem, they identified this problem and they gave one solution. This solution is nothing but called as data pages. What are these data pages? It is like, in fact, Netflix also uses that. For example, let's say Kantara came, uh, you know, live on on Netflix channel. Okay. So what Netflix does is, for example, let's say Vishwas is accessing that particular movie from Mysore. Okay. So what they do is, first time whoever accesses that movie, he is the only one who will be buffering. For example, let us say that movie is sitting in a drive in United States of America in one of the data centers of Netflix. Okay. First time Vishwas accessed it, what happens is the entire movie gets downloaded to the nearest server, which is for Vishwas. For example, he accessed it from India, right? So from US, that data gets transferred to the nearest data center. Could be the data center is in Bangalore. So it gets transferred to Bangalore. Now, from the same place, for example, if Jagruti is in Bangalore and if she's trying to hit this particular wants to watch this movie, does it make sense she has to again come back to United States server to get that data? Are you guys able to understand? Yes, no. So Kantara is hosted in US server. Okay. And let's say candidate 1 accessed it in, let us say, Bangalore. Okay. So the first time the candidate accesses it, what happens? This data, the movie, entire movie comes and sits on nearest data center. Data center is nothing but a cloud location where this data is going to come and sit. Nearest data center. Let's say that data center is in Bangalore. So it came and sat in Bangalore. First time when he accessed, that got loaded into Bangalore. So next time any number of candidates, candidate 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whenever any of the users in Bangalore, when they try to access this movie for the next time, it will be accessed from Bangalore data center. It makes sense, right? Why should again this guy come to US data server and access it? It makes sense to load that movie in Bangalore data center. Does it make sense, guys? Why? Because that is a very expensive operation. If you're trying to hit a US data center from India, the amount of bandwidth and the resources and the network, network resources which you are using is too huge. That's why what they do, they bring it and load it into Bangalore's data center. Why? Because it was accessed for the first time. So they bring and load. Next time anyone accesses it, the accesses the movie, the nearest location where it was loaded is Bangalore's data center. From there, it loads the movie to all these guys. So what the takeaway from here is, the operation is expensive. That is why it is better to store it locally. Does it make sense? So data pages are also exactly similar to this. What they do is whenever they try to access, for example, in our example, if you see the states table data, the states table data, whenever we have to access it, we are hitting the database. Now, if we know that we are going to hit it again and again, it makes sense to store it locally, somewhere locally in the application, not hitting the database, but maybe on a clipboard page. Does it make sense? So what we are saying here is, whenever we know that if this data is going to be accessed very frequently, we want to store it locally. So data pages also are exactly similar to that. So this data page is a rule in Pega and is part of data model category. Let us see that. Auto insurance. Let me go to Dev Studio. So it is part of data model category. How does this help? Let us see. How does this help? We'll see that. So if I try to open records and go to data model category, expand this, you will see something called as database. Am I able to see this under data model category? Okay. So now we know this is a rule form which rolls up under data model category. which is called as data page. Purpose of data page is to avoid the hits to the database to the possible extent, avoiding hits to the database. Let us see any of the existing data pages. If you see, the data pages start with D underscore. Are you able to see that? D underscore. I'm just opening one of the data pages. D underscore py all work list. Some out of the box data page which is present. I'm just trying to open to see what does. One thing to understand is data pages, like with the name, as you see the name, they are always created under data classes. Why? Because they are meant to store data. That's why it makes sense to create under data classes. What are the category of classes we have? We have work class, data class, and integration class. Yes or no? Data dash, work dash, and haven't we seen that when we are learning about classes? Yes or no? Yeah, okay. So always try to link what you have learned before with this thing. Always try to link that. Now I have just opened one of the data classes. We can also see what obj class does it belongs to. Control X, px, obj class. See, rule hyphen declare hyphen pages. Though it is rule dash, the class is declare hyphen pages. Didn't we say that previously these were called as declare pages, guys? Sometimes when you go, people who have been working from long, they will refer to these data pages as declare pages. Don't get surprised. They are talking about data pages. Why? The pxobj class of data pages is of data pages is rule declare rule hyphen declare hyphen pages. Does it make sense, guys? Are we able to understand? Though you will see here the name is data page, the rule name is data page. Still, see, the rule name is data page. Still the class is rule hyphen declare hyphen pages. Very important, guys. They will refer to, oh, do you know declare pages is what they will ask. Yes, I know. Declare pages were something which were created in previous versions, but from version 7.7.x, they have been renamed to data pages, should be your answer. And the pxobj class which they roll up under is rule hyphen declare hyphen pages. Is it understood? Also, something which is interesting in this thing is they start with D underscore. Any data page which you create, it starts with D underscore. Yes or no? Yes or no, guys? Is it starting with D underscore? See, all the data pages are starting with D underscore. D underscore state table list, D underscore state table, D underscore editable fields. See, all are D underscore. Very important. Okay. Data pages start with D underscore. Very important. Okay. With this, let's take one step ahead. But why did it come in existence? Because we didn't want to go and fetch water every time we wanted water. We didn't want to go to the well to fetch water. What does that mean? With report definitions and obj browse, we had challenges of fetching the data. With report definition, with report definition and obj browse, the challenge was hitting db every time we needed data. Every time we needed data, we had to go and hit the db. We had to call the db. So sometimes if the data is huge, the request response time was huge, right? This impacted application performance. Haven't you seen sometimes applications keep spinning round and round and round when they are trying to load some data? Haven't we seen that? It's taking more than desired time to load. Have you seen that? Yes, no. That is because at the back end they are trying to perform certain operations with database which is taking huge time. These are the reasons, when you're trying to hit database for every small request, that means it is adding to the latency, to the delay on the application. And these are some challenges which are there with report definition and obj browse. For report definition and obj browse, every time you have to load the drop down of the states table on your application, you have to hit the report definition. And the report definition inside internally it is going and hitting the database and fetching the data and bringing. But if I know that this data is going to be something which I'll be needing again and again, I can create a data page and I can store that there. Yes or no? With report definition and obj, so obj browse, the source will be called again and again. That is a disadvantage. To overcome that disadvantage, data pages were introduced. Data page, what it will do is, first of all, the source will be called only once in data pages. In the sense, for example, if I need exactly similar to this Kantara movie example which we saw, for example, if I need states table, I'll be calling once. For example, my first work object, let us say C-001, I called the states table from the drop. I loaded the drop down. First time it goes and hits the database, brings the data. I create one more work object, C0002. At that time, it doesn't go and hit the database. What it does, it will see that it is already available on my clipboard page. So it will use the existing page. Is it not a same data? Do you think it makes sense every time we create work object hitting the database to get that state stable data? Does it make sense, guys? Yes, no. It doesn't make sense hitting every database every time. So what we can do, we can make use of data pages to do that. So let us see, let's try to create a database and understand what exactly we are talking about here, right? Where is my application here? Slightly intriguing, topic, but good to learn. Good to learn. Don't worry if you guys are finding it hard to understand. It's fine. We'll be using this a lot, so I'll be going much in detail, so it will start getting easier. But just understand that there is something called as data page rule, using which you can create data pages, and then it is a replacement or it is a better option compared to report definitions and uh, obj browse is what you have to remember from today's class. So I'll try to create, I want to create this under data class. So what I will do, though I am creating from here, slightly slow today, come on, not everything is going as per plan. I'll right click on data model, create, I'll say data page. I want to create a data page to handle my states, to get the states from the states table. So I'll say get states. Like we said, the data pages are always created under data class, right? So I do have my data class alpha hyphen data hyphen states table. No. Also something you have to notice is if you see the name automatically got appended d underscore get states. See, are we able to notice that? Perfect. Very important. All I did was closing this, cancelling, coming back again. Right clicked on data model category, clicked on create, clicked on data page, gave a name to my data page, get states, and I chose the class I want it under, which is data class. Data tables, data pages are always created under data class. Very important thing to remember, and it has d underscore appended automatically. After this, I will say create and open. Perfect. So now, as soon as it loaded, you will see what sort of data do you want to maintain in this. You have data page definition. Okay, here the first drop down you are seeing is structure. Can someone tell me what does it mean, page or list? Let us say this is about exactly right. So if someone is handling resumes, do you want to, if the recruiter has only one resume or if he has list of resumes, it's as good as that. They are saying in this data page, is it a single page, like it's just one set of data, a page data which you want to handle, or do you have a list? No, I have a list of states, right? So that is why I'll choose list here in the structure. Okay, I'll choose list here in the structure. As soon as I chose list here, there is something called as keyed page access which got enabled. Don't worry about this right now. Slightly advanced topic. I'll explain you later. Right now, just see that in structure you have two options, page and list. Okay, and I chose list here. And the object type is, of course, it belongs to states table. Right, this is where you will be telling what sort of, which class will it roll up under, what sort of data you'll be holding, which is state table, which you have already chosen. That is why it is populating here. The third option is, do you want to keep this data read only, editable or savable? This, you are not going to modify this list. The number of states is not going to change, so we'll keep it read only. Sometimes you will want some editable data where you want to edit it. Could be, employee list of employees which you are loading. You want that to be editable, you can keep it editable. Sometimes you want it savable. What does that mean? Whenever you modify that data, where these could be pages where at runtime you want to modify them and you also want to save them. For example, you are enrolling new candidates as part of recruitment process. You want to keep this as savable. Whenever someone modifies this thing on your UI, you want to save that data on your table. That is when we will be using savable. Right now, just understand that there are three options on mode, which is read only, editable and savable. Okay, so right now we will be using read only because the list of states is not going to change for us. We are just going to read it and store it on our clipboard page. That is why we will be choosing read only. Perfect. Third thing, something which we can see here is scope. The scope tells me that does this scope mean at thread level or requester level or node level, is one option here. What does this mean? We'll understand that. Okay, I'll just leave it as it is. I'll leave it to thread here. Okay, and I'll jump to data sources. Under data source, you will see multiple options. First thing is connector. This is related to integration. Don't worry about that. Forget about all the options here. Just remember there is something called as report definition and activity. Because we have seen this, let's only focus on this. When we'll do integration, we'll understand what exactly this means. Integration is a much later topic. It will be coming at least like 20 days later from now on. So don't worry about that. Right now, just let's think report definition is the only source. In the source, I'm modifying and I'm saying report definition will be the source. Does it make sense, guys? Does it make sense? Yes? No? Okay. So I think you guys are having you are struggling in getting this thing, don't worry about it. Let's just do one round of execution and let us see where we are, and then we'll repeat back. So we do have get states report definition. We created this, right? Yes or no? Get states report. Let me open this. Did we create this report definition? See, if you go and see in the history, you'll see that on November 6th, this was created. If you see on the report definition class, on the day of report definition class, we created this report definition. Yes or no? State code and state name. Do we remember? We created this thing, and then what we did, we went to the section and we referred this particular report definition in the source for states. Yes or no? Yes or, yes or no, guys? We came here, we told, okay, the source can be modified, and we told for this drop down, we went to the page source and we modified and we referred the report definition. Did we do that? See, report definition, get states report. Does it ring a bell? Perfect. So that is where we had used it. So now what we are saying, this data page, when it is going to load the data, it is going to use this report definition to load the data, is what we are saying. We are the entire thing we are saying here, data sources means what is the source of from which this page will be loaded. That is what we are specifying. We are telling it is going to use report definition to fetch the data. But you might be asking, but you said we are trying to replace report definitions and and obj browse using data pages. Is that not we said? Right? But here, if you something which to remember here is, though this is the source using which the data will be fetched, as we said, data pages is only to fetch once and use as many number of times. We are not going to call this again and again. This is exactly similar to this guy, the first candidate who hits for the movie Kantara from US server. First time he fetches. After that, every time anyone needs it, it is hit from Bangalore server and it is utilized. Does it make sense, guys? Perfect. Good. If you have not understood, no problem. We can go over this session from start. We can jump into much more details every time, and then we can understand. Don't worry about that. Right now, just go with the flow and see what it means. Just understand what it is saying. Okay. Perfect. So I'll save this now. This right now, all we have done here is, right clicked on this thing, created a data page, told the source will be the report definition from where we will be getting data to this data page. Does it make sense? Did we do anything extra, guys? All right, perfect. Now we know that we have this section where we are trying to source the states data. Yes or no? The states data is being used here, right? And if you see, the source to this is report definition. Yes or no? We also saw how we can use clipboard page there. We used the activity, we using obj browse, we loaded that and we used the clipboard page also. Did we use that? Right? Today, if you see, there is an option called data page. Do we see that? Let me choose that. Now, it is asking me what is a data page name. Do I have a data page which I created? Right? I can use that. Right? D underscore get. See, I'm able to find that get states. Yes, perfect. So all we did here was we created a get states data page. We told the source for that thing is a report definition, and what will be the value for this? What value are we trying to show here? Dot state code, right? But the display name should be very good. Too complex, understood, didn't understand, whatever it is, you should tell me. I'm canceling this. I'm not saving it. Coming back again. So when we learned what is report definition, first we understood what is the obj browse, and then what we said, okay, we had a static pick list here. We removed that pick list and we referred a clipboard page, and that clipboard page was getting populated by the running of a pre-activity which got ran, and it updated this particular drop down. Using that pre-activity, we loaded this thing with the states from the clipboard page. After that, we enhanced it and we told, okay, report definition is a better option than obj browse, and we told, okay, we created a report definition and we referred it here. Yes or no? Did we do that? Did we do that, guys? Right, perfect. Now after that, today we saw a concept called data pages, which avoids our visits or our hits to database, and it creates a copy whenever it hits the database for the first time, brings it and keeps it on clipboard, and it can be utilized to update our access wherever, again, if it is necessary. We don't have to go and hit the database again, and we are telling we want to use that. Fortunately, on every control, we have option to choose data page. See, I'm able to use that, choose the data page. I can refer to the data page which I created, get states, right? Created. The property I want to, the value which I want to refer there is state code. The user has to see state name because that is user friendly, right? And I'm saying submit and save. Does it make sense, guys? Understood? Everyone understood this? Perfect. So now, but we are saying, so we don't have to hit again database if we use it once, is what we are saying. But right now it is only present in one screen. What I will do, just to make it look interesting, I'll right click on this thing, copy this particular property, and I'll also paste this in personal vehicle section. We want to know if this particular feature of data page is avoiding that data, the database route, right? If it is fetching only once and rendering it, or helping us render in both the places, we want to ascertain next time on personal info section, personal vehicle info section, if it is, when I try to access it, is it hitting again, or it is letting us to use the existing page which is present on the clipboard. So, I'll explain this also. Let me just copy this guy. Where is this guy? All I'm doing is copy. Okay. All I did was I added the state, this thing in personal vehicle info section also. Imagine these guys as candidate one is customer details section, who is hitting Kantara for the first time. Second time, personal info, vehicle info. Imagine him as the second guy who wants to watch Kantara. We want to know the first guy, when he tries to access Kantara, he goes to US server and fetches it. Does the second guy also has to go to US server and fetch it? Is what we want to ascertain. Does it make sense, guys? Any doubts so far? Yes? No? Also, let's try to see clipboard if this page already exists, so that we are not surprised when we go there. D underscore states. Are you able to see D underscore states anywhere, guys, here under user pages? No, let us see under data pages also, right? What sort of data page are we creating? A thread data page, right? Thread level data page. Are you able to see D underscore states anywhere here? No, right? No, perfect. Okay, that is clear to us. No problem. Now, let us try to, have I saved this? Save this. So both the places I have modified the options to pick from, you know, use the source as data page and not use anything else, right? See, data page is being utilized here. Data page is going to be utilized here as well, right? Data page, perfect. So configuration wise, all we have done here is created a data page and reference that in the sections where we are trying to access that data. That's what we are trying to do. Also with that, I want to run a flow and check. Before that, let me turn on the tracer. We know what is tracer, right? We have been using this for a while. In tracer, there is an option to change the settings also, in the sense what you want to trace. You can limit your search to what you want to trace. I want to see and learn only about data pages. So I will say uh, I want to see how data pages are getting loaded. Let me access DB query also. That is something, because by default it is not checked. I want to check it explicitly. Deselect all. I don't want all. I want alpha auto, because this application is alpha auto is what we are using. Admin at alpha. This is my user specific ones. I think this is good. I don't think anything else is needed. Just to make sure I have limited results and easy to understand. I'm just modifying the, here you can pick what you want to see. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is good. This is really good. Perfect. Let's try to create a work object and check, right? How do I create a work object? I can, okay, pass this, create, sorry, I have to go to my process flow and I'll open my customer flow. Okay, through customer flow, I did the tracer settings. Perfect. Okay, now I want to create a flow. Can I do it from here as well? I think I can. Okay, stuff's defined, that's fine. Actions. Tracer on. Let me turn on my tracer and I will say I want to run this flow and see if my data pages are getting called. Because I enabled queries, it is giving me too many records. I should have told no to queries. Was clear on this. Let me turn off the DB queries because it is adding too much of logs. I don't want to see them. Don't want DB query. I just want to see data pages. Okay. And it is in alpha auto, right? I just want alpha and alpha auto. Queue processing also don't want. Perfect. If you see right now the clipboard, you will see that data pages should have already got loaded. D underscore get states. Let's try to take a look very closely. Are we able to see D underscore get states, guys? See, it already got created. Why? For the first time. Okay, no problem. So, because we ran for the first time, it already got loaded. Now it is available in the clipboard page. Let me do one thing. I want to delete this. I don't want this to be available. Let me clear it off from here. Okay. Or I'll leave it as it is and I'll try to execute once more and let us see if it creates us a data page or it utilizes the same. Hold on. Because it is at thread level, it should ideally create one more, but let us verify that. Is my tracer on? All this to just make you understand a clear understanding about how it avoids the database call. Okay. See, got created 6002. Let us see what does the database have to say. Perfect. Very nice. If you see the database, the 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 data pages got loaded here. If you see loading in thread scope, has it loaded here? Yes, no, perfect, right? Let me pause this. Just remember that there are only 17 lines here and we have the data page got created. Okay, we have 10 minutes. Let's try to wrap up the thread scope. So I will choose, let's say, Karnataka. Okay, I selected something like Karnataka. Now let me turn on the tracer. Okay, I'm turning on the tracer. See, for the first round, it went and fetched from the database. It created this particular d underscore get states data page. Now we are on the same work object. I'm trying to click next. Just see. I'm just clicking submit. See, it is populating to Karnataka. Let us see what does the. Do you see any extra database call or anything here? Right now, if you see data page load begin, data page load end. Do you see do you see any other data page loads here? It is telling data page instance found, data page instance found, data page instance found. Yes or no? The loading had stopped till 17 on the first page. Do we agree? Yes, no. The d underscore get states data page got created as soon as the first time this work object got loaded, right? 6002. For the next time, for example, on the following page also this particular states was needed, but what it did, it saw that it is already available on clipboard. On the clipboard it was already available and it accessed the same data page and loaded it for the user. Yes or no? Is it understood, guys, how exactly data pages can reduce your database calls and we can make use of the same data page for consecutive calls. Why? Because the data is already loaded on the clipboard at a thread level. Does it make sense? Perfect. So today we understood how exactly you can create a data page and how you can utilize that, at a thread level to reuse. You created it once, fetched it once from database, and you don't have to again fetch it from database because it is already available on the clipboard page. The system is utilizing that and it is telling, hey, data pages or instance is found. It is utilizing the same thing. First time it is loading, data page load begun. It has loaded from the database. Loading in thread scope, it is loading into the thread scope, and it is telling data page load is ended here. Step 3, it has ended. After that, all it has done is, whenever the system needed the data page, it has told, oh, data page already found, already evaluated, it's available, it's available, it's available, is what it has told. Are we able to understand what are data pages, guys? Yes or no? Perfect. So today's takeaway is this. Today's takeaway is how you can create data pages and how exactly, you can utilize them to avoid database hits and reuse them in any place. For example, in both these screens, we needed data page, this particular data, because that data page was already present, we were able to reuse it. Yes or no? We created it once and we utilized it in both these places. Does it make sense, guys? Perfect. So tomorrow we'll continue further from here with respect to node and requester. Other two scopes also we'll understand. This is it for today. So one thing which I have already tried doing is, so we'll be starting another patch for from scratch. We'll be starting that. So you guys can, anyone who wants to register to that can do it. Here I'm putting this in the chat, the registration link. You can use that, and you can, of course, you can get in touch with us here. Or is not in touch, you can get in touch with us here, right? Use this forms link to fill in your details, and I will reach out to you on the bash details whenever it is starting. I'll be creating a separate group for that, and this will be the link to get in touch with us. Do you guys have any questions from today's class, guys? Any of you had challenges in understanding what is a data page? I tried going like from grassroots level to help you understand why we need data pages, through that well example, or a borrow example where you have to go and fetch water every time you need it, and we can avoid that by building overhead tanks. These data pages are nothing but those yellow overhead tanks which will help you store the water whenever you need. When do you refill that? Only when it is empty you will refill that, right? The data pages also is the same thing. If you see, it keeps refreshing and checking. The system is smart enough. It is telling refresh already evaluated, fresh already evaluated, in the sense there has been no change in data, so it is evaluating if you had to go and fetch it again. So system does this evaluation by itself. Fresh, evaluated, already evaluated is what it is telling here. That is why I wanted to show you. So the next time, if you see after 17, it has not done, it has not hit again. What it has done is it sees that database instance is fresh and it is found. Database instance is found. It is already available on the thread scope. It is already available. So it accessed that and loaded the personal vehicle infos states drop down. Is it not? Guys, are you guys able to understand? Right. Like, does it give you a clear understanding of why data pages are necessary? Guys? Very important. In your interview, you'll have a lot of questions associated with data pages. The first thing which should come to your mind is, yes, data pages are there and those were built to avoid consecutive or repetitive calls to database, because every call to database is an expensive operation from resources standpoint. A lot of resources are consumed when you try to hit the database. So we want to avoid those hits. Going and talking to database, it's like, talking to someone on a paid this thing. We don't want to do that. We want to avoid that. To avoid that, we will be using data pages. Was that conveyed clearly today? Yes or no? Okay. Perfect.